why is it that everyone hates the Koopalings? Like, what did they do to get us to this level of hate that we don't want them in like any future games? And I was sitting there thinking about this because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna exclude myself from this conversation. I was there, you know, I was definitely in that boat of I don't want the Koopalings anymore. And I really don't know why on retrospect. Looking back and thinking about the things that they have been in, it kind of made me kind of realize that maybe we were going overboard with some of the hate towards some of these characters, kind of. Well, after looking back, I was trying to figure out what really caused the hate in the first place. So they originate from Mario Bros. 3, and they were perfectly fine in that game. I don't think anyone in the world had a single complaint about the Koopalings. They were all pretty much the same, kind of. They moved around back and forth inside their airships, but they would have different wand effects, or maybe a little something that changes up how they play. Morton and Roy will jump on the ground and shake the ground a little bit, making you unstable when you walk, and some will actually shoot beams out of their wands. So there was different little elements that made them very unique, especially for the time. I don't think too many people were complaining about Super Mario World's versions either. They weren't necessarily great, but it was cool to see them return in a different art style. But it wasn't really Mario Bros. 3 that made people upset. I think it's when we started moving into the new Super Mario Bros. Era. Like with new Super Mario Bros. Wii, we started to see these bosses return, which was also still a really cool idea. But then we start to see how lame they were. However, I still think Mario Bros. Wii did a really good job at showcasing these characters now in a different form of 2D Mario, a newer form, if you would. But yeah, I don't really have a huge complaint even with this game, but I think it really starts to unfold the more and more we see these characters because their main gimmicks don't change. For instance, in New Super Mario Bros. U, we knew Lemmy was going to have his bouncy balls. Larry will have a very basic stage with just moving pillars or platforms. Wendy is going to have an ice or water stage where she throws her rings around. It was the same types of gimmicks that we could expect each time, and I think this problem also extends into other aspects of the Mario series. For instance, we could even pull up the Broodals. I think the Broodals are better versions of the Koopalings, although once you fight one, you fight the same exact version of that boss fight over and over and over again, so it's just kind of repetitive. Although, you can't just spam jump on its head in order to end the battle in 5 seconds, because it has kind of phases that prevents you from doing so, which that's what makes it kind of special compared to the Koopalings, which you can easily gimp as soon as they pop right back out of their shells. So honestly, this is where the hate started to come from. People were so sick and tired of these Koopaling boss battles that were just a breeze to walk through, and it was like more along the lines of people normally being excited to play boss battles, wanted to just bust through this boss battle of each world to get back into the actual level gameplay, because this was just so boring. Because of these very mediocre boss battles against the Koopalings, people started developing hate around them and actually wanted a change for the new Super Mario Bros. Games or any 2D Mario games in the future. They actually wanted original boss battles, at least getting them back to along the lines of new Super Mario Bros. On the DS. This was the first and only 2D Mario game in existence, let that sink in existence, to have original boss battles that wasn't Bowser Jr., that wasn't Boom Boom, and that wasn't the Koopalings. So I think it's more along the lines that Nintendo decided to do original bosses like 2 console series back on the DS. So they didn't do it on the Wii, and the Wii U, and the 3DS, and even the Switch. So people are kind of like confused as to why Nintendo is refusing to come up with some original boss battles just because it's a 2D Mario. Can they not do that? But does it have to deal with the Koopalings directly? I don't think so. Now, besides the 2 classics being Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World, and obviously new Super Mario Bros. Series, I look back to see exactly what else has the Koopalings been in. It's a travesty. Now, yes, I'm not here to blast these games per se, but it's a shame that the Koopalings have only appeared in these games and like no other mainline Mario games or even 3D Mario games. Yes, they were in Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but that doesn't really count here. But even a game like Yoshi's Safari found a unique way to integrate the Koopalings in a fun, different way than just having them use their wands. For crying out loud, most of them had like these giant robotic mechs in this game, which you had to break apart in order to reveal them, which was just such a cool concept. A lot of the time, they just used the Koopalings to pilot these things, and then you wouldn't even see them or fight them at all until the very end of the battle, where they would just pop up with a white flag letting you know that they were inside the whole time. This is the reason why people hate the Koopalings. It's not really because of the characters themselves, it's just how we battle them. It's just them against their, special items they always have. Morton's hammer, Lemmy's ball, you know what I mean? They need to change it up. Give them some mechs, give them something that's interesting to fight the Koopalings in, give them some character, because in Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, which is a great game by the way, one of the best in that series, It's just disappointing that they chucked the Koopalings in at the very end of the game, and they didn't really give them much dialogue, much emotion, much character at all. It just kind of feels like, oh yeah, the Koopalings are here, and this is the only time you see them in the entire game. Color Splash and Paper Jam actually integrated them into the story, and they actually gave them real character, you know what I mean? They gave them their own personalities, they all had a different goofy sense to them, and it was fun to watch them interact and talk to each other, especially as a giant group. You get to see them in Bowser's Castle arguing with each other, who's the lead and stuff, and Bowser Jr. arguing with them. It was great, and it actually added full character to all of them, which made it more interesting. And in Color Splash, the boss battles were kind of fun, even though you still needed a specific thing card in order to take them down. It at least gave them something other than just a wand. Now, of course, you will also find them in the side modes with like the Bowser Jr. Journey mode, and these are probably the best situations where we have full character arcs, and you get to see how each of the Koopalings act and talk to each other, and like their sarcasm with each other and stuff, and who are their favorites, who are their least favorites in the group, and it's an awesome example of what we need from mainline Mario game. Let them talk more, give them more interesting boss battles, expand them instead of it just feeling like, here are these Koopalings, and there's 7 of them, so there's your boss battles for each of the worlds. Boom. And then that brings us back to Mario Wonder, which is the new release that did not have the Koopalings, which a lot of us thought they would. And after all of our complaints, Nintendo said, hey, how about instead you just get Bowser Jr. 4 times? And I think this was the realization where we all came together collectively and said, we want the Koopalings back. They actually would have worked really cool in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and I just straight up missed them. I talked about this 100 times already, so I'm not going to go into details of how they would have worked in Wonder. They would have just used Wonder events and stuff and just would have been different. But at the same time, I really want to see the Koopalings return in more mainline Mario games, like the 3D games as well, because there's still stuff that they can do with them. I think we were kind of wrong to just straight up write them off based on their new Super Mario Bros. Appearances, because some of their other appearances in spin-off Mario games have actually been quite well. So long story short, we need the Koopalings back. I think it's safe to say that we were wrong, because after Mario Wonder, we can see that it's either just going to be Bowser Jr. or just Boom Boom every single time, and that definitely gets annoying. Whether they're just mini bosses or they expand on them, they definitely should bring them back in some of Mario's bigger adventures, like the 3D ones, or maybe this rumored upcoming open world 3D Mario game. That would be awesome. So let's end the Koopaling hate. No more hate. We want to see them return, just not in their basic forms like we've seen in the new Super Mario Bros. Games. So yes, let's start like a hashtag, bring back the Koopalings. Let's all generate happiness around them, except for Morton. I hate Morton.